Hello, and welcome back to the Life of Chai. El Toth here, continuing with our Mexicans theme. The last video that I did was the pico de gallo, and that's a prepared recipe which I basically use every day. We use it in tacos and burritos, and so it's a prepared recipe that you're going to want to keep in your refrigerator. The other prepared recipe that I will make about once a week is the Salsa de Chile de Arbol. And this is posted on the website, on the Life of Chai website. And if you look down here, Salsa de Chile de Arbol is going to consist of about 5 tomatoes, 1 serrano, some garlic, and right here, I'm sorry it's off to the side, but some Chile de Arbol. And these you're going to buy in a bag in your supermarket. I toast them a little bit. I've seen them recently sold toasted. One thing I wanted to mention about the vegetables that you buy and the food, the tomatoes have all been washed. I'll wash these under running water like this, put them on a towel and let them dry overnight. And usually I'll buy 5, 7, 8, 10 tomatoes at a time. And after they're washed and dry, I just leave them on the counter because they're still kind of ripening for a few days. And after 3 or 4 days, if you haven't used them, then you can put them in your refrigerator. But I've 1 or 2 for pico de gallo every other day, and then making the salsa, of course. And then as far as these chilies go, these are serrano chilies. And I buy these, again, 7, 8, 10 a week. But I pick them, I want to make sure that this stem is still green, and that means it's fresh. It hasn't dried up or fallen off. If it falls off, it could rot there, and you want to make sure that it's not rotting here. It's really hard. And if they've been sitting in the bin for a week, they're going to be kind of soft. And so you want nice firm chilies, and again, these will last for a week in your fridge. And so without further ado, the method, okay, so the method that we will use today is this traditional molcajete. And I'm going to show you this method of preparing the Salsa de Chile de Arbol only because it's a little bit more, there's a little bit more technique involved. The other method that you can use, which I use, is a blender, okay? Blender makes it easy. You're making this once a week. You want easy, but there's another type of blender, and that's a immersion blender. The blender is fine if you don't have this immersion blender, and I would always recommend Vitamix. I don't make any money from that, but the problem with the blender is you have to wash the top, you have to wash this, you have to wash the blender itself. The nice thing about an immersion blender, now I picked up this in the restaurant supply, and it's usually used to hold salad dressing, but it's like a 2-quart stainless steel, and then with the immersion blender, I can make my salsa in here. It's also good for making pesto and a lot of other things with an immersion blender. And then at the end, you just wash 2 items, and it's a lot less cleanup than a traditional blender. Okay, so for the Salsa de Chile de Arbol, I've already prepared the tomatoes. So the tomatoes have to be cooked. The tomatoes have to be cooked, and the easiest way to cook them, these are roasted, but they were cooked first. I put them in the oven, cooked them for about 20 minutes, let them cool off, and then I put them on it's like a carbon steel griddle that you can buy in the store. You can buy carbon steel skillets these days, and we want to roast them. We want to blacken them. That black is the flavor. That's the roasted, and you're going to find that in the Mexican recipes. So how do we put this all together? We're here with the molcajete, and the problem is if you throw these tomatoes in there right now, everything is going to get lost, and you're not going to be able to grind it up because this is your tool. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with chili. We're going to start with some chili. And I'm gonna pre-cut this up a little bit. And in this case, remember the pico de gallo? We didn't use the seeds, right? But in this case, we are gonna use the seeds. I failed to mention that this chili was also roasted, so along with the tomato. So I put some chili in there, and I'm gonna throw in some garlic, probably about, these are small cloves. I'll throw in about 2 of those. If it was a big clove, 1 would have been good, but we're going to put 2 small cloves in. So here we go. We're going to start with the garlic and the chilies. And the chilies have a skin on them, and you want to be able to let me tell you something else about making it in the, hear that sound? When you make it in the molcajete, and what I'm doing is I'm finding that chili skin and I'm trying to grind it in there. You can make this in a blender, but it always tastes better in a molcajete. And the reason why is because in this process, you're actually grinding a little bit of the rock, creating a little bit of rock flour. It's a basaltic rock. A little bit of that flour, rock flour, is mixing in, and that's the flavor. That's the traditional flavor. You see what I've done there? Yeah, that's the only way. You can't start with the tomatoes. You have to start with the garlic and the chilies. Okay, so that looks good. Now, remember that part of the tomato? Tomatoes in the nightshade family, and that's a little bit of a poisonous plant, that stem part, so I might cut that once. Let me do 2 of them to start. So yeah, we're getting that little stem part out of there. And you know what? When you're in Mexico and you're getting salsa, you're going to find that in your salsa. They don't take the time to take that out. But I do, because I'm making this food for my friends and family. So this is where it starts to get a little tricky. Look at that thing, it's kind of slipping around there. And you have to find it and smash it. This salsa becomes a chunky salsa. And it's going to be spicy because these Chile de Arbol, and I used to put about 12 Chile de Arbol, and now I only use about 7 or 8 because they are spicy. So start with less and work your way up. And of course, if you don't like the spice, you can make the same recipe, and I have it on the website, and it's called Victoria's Secret. Yes, not to be confused with the other website. But anyway, you can see how I'm going through there, and I'm looking for pieces, and I can feel it. I'm looking for pieces of a little bit more. Look at that, roasted. Yep, I can smell that. It almost smells like a cooked pizza or something. I'm going to cut it once or twice. It makes the grinding process a little bit easier. As you start to add tomatoes, again, they get lost in that mixture, and you don't want some big chunk of tomato to pop out in your salsa. So it really is a little bit of the work is actually searching for it. Scrape some of that bottom, get that garlic and chili off the sides. I got 2 more tomatoes to put in. Grab them right here. Quickly take that little stem out of there. I'm gonna put 1 in there. Let me grab the stem out of there. I might stop with that chili depending on how full that molcajete gets. Let's see what we got. Now it's getting a little harder. See, those pieces of tomato are wanting to slip around, but this is going to create that salsy, that chunky salsa. You can also use a technique of pounding on it. Whatever works. I mean, there's going to be a learning curve when if you get one of these molcajetes, and I have 3 of them. I have a nice little small one, and they're made of volcanic rock, but sometimes the rock is dense. This one is a little coarser, but I collect them when I'm in various parts of Mexico. And I think I'm going to stop there because that looks pretty full. You see some chunkiness to that. Here's some of the green chili. So we can mix that all in there. Honestly, I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna put this other piece in there. Just smash it in there. Get some of that rock flour. It actually was perfect because that filled it up. So we have the chili and garlic. We have roasted tomatoes. There's only a few more ingredients. And one of them would be cilantro. I'm going to cut up the cilantro a little bit. It's going to be easier than trying to grind it in there. So I'm going to cut it up just a little bit. Put that in there. And then we need some salt. And last, the Chile de Arbol. But for this, I'm going to put on gloves because if any of you have ever handled chilies before and then you've touched your face or something, you know. So these chilies were roasted, as I mentioned earlier, these chilies were roasted. I've seen that they're selling them roasted now, but when you roast them, if you take them right out of the bag, they're kind of rubbery. And I've seen recipes that are calling to soak these in water first. That's not going to work because when you soak it in water, and that's a recipe that you use for certain salsas, but in this case, you want to be able to powderize this stuff. Look at that. Because I roasted it and then let it cool, it turns into a powder. If you soaked it in water, it wouldn't powderize and you would have big chunks of the chili. Look at that. That's this powder. And so I'm going to do these one at a time. Yes, those are going to be spicy, and you're probably already, if you're standing next to me, you're smelling that, and it's going to be, if you end up on the floor, I'll just tell the paramedic to read the recipe. This is what, yeah, and when you use a blender and you put this and you grind it up like this, you see why I'm using, you see what's happening to the powder on my fingers? Yeah, that's going to be on your fingers if you don't use gloves. But I would never soak these things because you can't get that powder. This is the salsa that I make once a week. And again, I've heard recipes, freeze it. Why? Why freeze it? Use it and make more, right? Look, I'm going to grind some of that in there using the molcajete, using the stone. This is called the piedra, or the stone. So you have the molcajete and you have the stone. There's some of that, creating some of that rock flour. It's going to be the secret ingredient for flavor. And I think we're about done. I have to apologize, I forgot one thing. Where are my tortilla chips? My totopos? Well, you can see what we've created here. Owning a molcajete makes a beautiful display. If you're having a party, you can have it displayed like that. I would put a spoon in there, and then your guests can enjoy that with their tacos, with their nachos, with any of the Mexican food that you may be creating. And that's about it. So you got your pico de gallo, and now you got your salsa de Chile de Arbol. I think you should be set for any tacos. I will use this on every taco. I use it in every burrito. I make it once a week. This is a recipe, and that was handed down to me actually about 20 years ago, and it's an authentic recipe. And I hope you enjoy. If you enjoy, like it, subscribe, and stay tuned for the next installment. Thank you so much.